so I need all of the badasses who have a heart to listen to this video all the way through. If this video is coming on your page, then that probably applies to you somewhat, or at least you're interested, which is the demographic that I'm looking for. Because I'm realizing that a lot of people right now are just feeling like their voices aren't getting heard, and so I'm offering historic examples of becoming ungovernable. And I started with the simple, somewhat smaller scale example of wheat pasting, and I kind of want to go from there in both directions as an easier option for people who are just getting started, but that they're a little more cautious, versus the people who are like, let's do it, let's tear down the system. I've got it all. So I'm going to cover the wide range. I talked about wheat pasting the last time. That is still available, and I'm actually going to add posters to the resource that I've already made available, where all of my posters are already there for free to download so that you can just use it and go. I know some people aren't really built that way to think artistically or whatever, and it causes them stress. So I don't want this to cause you stress. To get started, there is wheat pasting, but let's go even simpler than that. Chalk. Now, as you can tell, these are large. You do not need these specifically, but just get some chalk. Look it up in your area, because there are certain states where they've made chalk on sidewalks, on public sidewalks and streets, illegal, and have actually gone after small children for their drawings in the street. I kid you not, when I looked into this, I was shocked myself. But yeah, just be careful when you're doing any of this. Obviously, please be safe and responsible with any of these things, but this is going to be on the smaller end of, like, most people are probably not going to come after you for chalk, especially if you're like a student or something. Good option, but be weary, because they definitely come after everything and anything, because we live in a militaristic, police fascist state. But anyway, moving on, smaller option. Before I continue, let's talk safety, because regardless of the level of ungovernable, you need to be protected, because the pandemic is not over, y'all. I'm chronically ill. COVID fucked up my cardiovascular system, so please just be careful. It's also flu season, so always wear a mask. It also doubles as covering your face, you know, for the harsh winds that some of us may encounter in these cold times. If it's feeling extra chilly and you're feeling like you need some extra protection, then maybe consider a ski mask. It works really well, but watch out, because some states are trying to make it illegal, including Atlanta, Georgia. So just look it up. Always, again, safe and responsible. That is the goal here. Speaking of it being cold, these next ones work best if there is snow, or if there's ice, or if this will not melt. What I'm talking about is specifically red paint or red food coloring mixed with water in a water gun like this. You can just reuse one. I got this at the local thrift store. You can also just use a water bottle instead of just using paint, because that is harder to wash off in a lot of circumstances. You can put red food coloring in water and do some creative stuff, spraying it on the snow near whatever area you want to look like something happened with red water. But alternatives is what I'm about to show you. Obviously, this looks kind of grim, especially with some of the images that we've been seeing recently, and that's kind of the point. We're trying to send a message with a lot of these things. So here's just another creative example of what you can do with just water and red food dye. This was just a glove in a regular hand, just like placed, obviously, and then you just get it off. Oops, it just broke. Leave it at whatever public location that you're trying to send a message. You can get a little more creative with the shapes that you're putting them in. It's a little harder to get the fingers out. Either way, just play around with it. It doesn't even matter if they fall apart, because it still gets the message across. They just won't melt as much on the outside where it is cold, which is why I mentioned it, than here in my living room. And for everyone, including the people in the back, again, I'm just going over historic examples here of people slowly becoming ungovernable. I'm not telling you or any of your friends, specifically in friend groups, ideally more than 2. If you look like a heterosexual couple, that's great. But I'm not telling anyone to do anything. In fact, I want everyone to be as safe and responsible as possible. I mean that. I do not want anyone to get in trouble. I am just going over historical examples. The goal of this is not just to leave a message, but also to kind of become a hassle for the person that you are leaving the message for. So we are increasing in the effort that it takes to fix what you have done. Next on the list is going to be stickers. These are obviously really small, but if you just want to slap them up in any area, that's great for that. Historic examples don't actually do any of this. Next on the list is going to be paint. Bigger amount than this. This is just what I had on hand. Red also stands out a lot more than white does. Leaving paint anywhere makes a huge mess and is really annoying to clean up. In that same vein, paint markers, especially oil-based, is going to be more annoying to get off. So using these to literally write your message. We have paint rulers, and I can make another video on how you make a pattern, like a custom pattern, to just quickly go up and down. If you're really just trying to leave a mess, historically, people have used spray paint. If you are using this, please be safe and always use a mask, and do it in locations where you are allowed, because no one should be getting in trouble in times like these. Speaking of safety tips, historically, people are recommended to cover tattoos and wear all black for obvious reasons. However, if you do want your presence to be known, and that is an option to make more of an impact and more of a statement, you can always tie yourself physically to the property that you are protesting. That has been used in the past successfully. However, you need to be aware the most likely consequences of that action is arrest. Similar to a lot of these historic examples, arrest is always on the table. People have done it because the cause spoke to them, so they thought that it was worth it. However, that is a decision that is not up to me, that is not up to anyone but the person taking action. All of these things need to be considered, but again, these are just historic examples. There is a current event that is happening on December 21st at Elbit Systems, that is Israel's main weapons manufacturer, that just happens to have a whole bunch of locations here in the United States. So probably have a location near you in some way, somehow. And I'm going to link the resource where you can find an interactive map to find these locations. It's going to be again on December 21st. So I'm not saying that badasses with a big heart should necessarily do anything. I'm just talking about examples in the past where people have. P.S. One last thing. Fire extinguishers replaced with paint, huge mess. Huge mess. And Palestine Action US has a really good video on how to do that safely, because again, safety first. I don't want anyone getting in trouble, okay? That's the last thing that any of us want.